Hello everyone, this is Micah Webner, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Visual Studio Code editor to clone a Git repository, make changes to the files, and push them back up to the source repository. For this example, I'm going to use a project library for the Henry Ford College CIS 294 course, where students are asked to add their own personal developer story to a Git repository. And so I'm starting off in a website. This is the HFC GitLab website, but this would work the same for sites like GitHub or Bitbucket. Any place you want to clone a repository from. I'm going to go into the repository that I need. We need to go to the repository tab here and then clone. If you're using SSH keys, which I highly recommend, for most Git operations, then you can clone with SSH and you can use the keys to do that. In this case, though, to make things a little bit simpler, we're going to go ahead and clone with HTTPS, which should prompt me for my username and password, and clone the repository this way. As you can see from the screenshot here, we already have some files in this repository. We have a README file which has some instructions in it. I have my own personal story here. May take a look at that, or probably just going to go ahead and add a sample file to demonstrate how this all works. So I'm going to hit copy URL here, and then I'm going to jump over to Visual Studio Code, and from code I'm going to hit Control-Shift-P, and I'm going to, if it's not near the top of your list, you just type git clone, and we're going to choose to git clone. It's going to ask for the repository URL. Paste that in here, and it's going to ask me where I want to put this. What folder do I want to create this in? I'm going to put this in my documents folder, and so I'll just select the repository location, and it's cloning it. So it's going to ask me for my username and my password. It's cloned, and then when it's done, it's going to ask me if I want to open it. And doing this is literally that simple. We now have a new folder. If I were to go over to my computer and look, you'll see I have CIS 294 developer stories. Here are all the files. I have Windows File Explorer set to show hidden files, so you can see the .git directory. We can also see some Visual Studio Code editor settings here. So we'll go back to VS Code, and now I can simply do something like add example file. We'll use a markdown file instead of text. Open it up, and now we've created this new file here. This is an example. Put your contents here and save it. And so I just created a text file, same way you'd create code. You notice over here now this is flashing that there was a change in the source control tab. We come over here and it shows that this file has been changed. We can do a lot of things to look at how it was changed and what was happening. We can simply stage this, which now shows that it's staged and ready to commit. And then we're going to say by Micah added example file. And when I do that, oops, and I guess I need to hit the checkbox instead of enter here. Source control now says that I don't have any unsaved changes. So I have basically made changes to my code and then updated the local Git repository. So we see I have my changes are now committed. I don't have any unchanged files. Say I noticed the typo or I wanted to add some more information. And I'll save that. And now we're back to, see, this now shows that the file was modified. I can commit it, put in my message, and save that. So this is great. I now have a Git repository working on my local hard drive. But if I want to share this back to the rest of the team, then I need to come over here and pull this down and select push. And when I select push, it's going to push those changes. It's going to process for a second. It also wants to know if, code wants to know if I would like to periodically run git fetch. so that I can see any changes that came in from another user. That's probably a good idea, so we'll go ahead and turn that on. And that way, if anyone else makes any commits, we'll see those as things go by. Let's verify that this is real, this has actually happened. I'll come back over to the repository, I'll refresh this page, and sure enough, here's our example file that we just added. This is an example, put your contents here. GitLab is nice that it formatted our markdown file for us. We can also go here and we can see the commits, and you can see that these are the changes that I just made here today, and they're in the repository. Everything's good. And aside from actually filling out and writing a user story, that is all that will be required to do this assignment and make sure that you're good to go. However, I don't really want that file. So I'm going to have to go back in here and remove it. So I'm just going to come back over to the Files tab, come in here and hit delete. And are you sure you want to delete it? Yes, move it to the recycle bin. And again, we now show a change here that we deleted the file. And it's already, and we want to just stage that change. And we're going to say, again, I'm going to use who I am and what I did in the Git log here. It just makes it a little bit easier for other users to read the history of what happened. And I'm going to push this change as well. Obviously, you want to be careful and not be removing other developers' files without talking to them first. We don't want that to happen in this situation. I'm going to come back over here. I'll refresh this page. It shows that we removed the file. If I go back over here, that file no longer exists. And so that is really the basics of how easy it is to work with Visual Studio Code. Microsoft has made it very, very easy by giving us this source control tab right over here on the left to keep track of our changes. And so whenever you're testing, whenever you're developing, and you've gotten to a point where you're comfortable with the changes and you think you should save them, go ahead and commit those. Commit early, commit often. You don't necessarily have to push all the time. And then if another developer has worked at the same time that you have, you can just, you always have the option of just pulling down their changes, merging your changes into theirs, and the system is pretty good about helping you get through all of those changes without any problems as well. One thing I should probably mention here is how to switch between projects, or if you're coming in, say you cloned everything to a thumb drive and now you want to work on this in the lab, and so you're not in. I'm going to close this folder here. So when you first open up Visual Studio Code, to open up a repository that's already been cloned, either by another tool or because it's just on your thumb drive, simply come in and instead of opening files, open folder. And when you open folder, and we'll go back again to documents and select this, highlight this and select this folder. And that's what opens this all up, and everything's right here. One thing I didn't point out, but you may have seen it as it went by, even if you're not in the source control tab and you're here in the Explorer tab, the Files tab, if you come in here and make a change to the files and save them, you should see that even in this display, this shows modified. It shows an M if the file's been modified. It shows a U if the file is a new file that's been untracked. Once it has yeah, there you go, untracked. And then if you delete a file that has been tracked, it'll show up as deleted, like I showed a little bit earlier here. So this is telling me that I've modified this file and I need to remember to make changes before I'm done. And that's pretty much it. That wraps up this tutorial on how to use Visual Studio Code with Git. Thanks for watching.